right, well, welcome everybody. I'd like to call the council meeting to order. Welcome to the June 4th meeting of the Temple Terrace City Council. I'd like to remind everybody to please silence your electronic devices. And if you would, please stand and join me in the invocation and the pledge. Lord, as we begin our meeting tonight, we pause to thank you for all we have to be grateful for. Help us always to remember those throughout the world who are suffering from war, oppression, or poverty. We pray that you guide government leaders at all levels to work for peace and fundamental human rights for all. Grant us resolve to heal the divisions within our nation and remember that we can be both diverse and united at the same time. We ask for your blessings here tonight as we work together to advance the common good of our community. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For those of you who don't often come to our council meetings, we have a fairly new tradition, year and a half or so now, I guess, where we begin our council meetings with a fun or at least interesting fact about the city of Temple Terrace or the region. Really was interesting, but not so much fun. So we've called it the interesting fact now. And so we rotate that duty among us, and tonight it falls on Councilmember Chambers. So, Councilmember.
Thank you, Mayor. My interesting fact for tonight is about golf cart usage in Temple Terrace. So I did a lot of research along with the city clerk, and we couldn't find anything official about using golf carts in Temple Terrace before 1998. The only thing I found before that was a letter from the city manager at that time, Mr. Bonfield, to the president of the golf course saying that because of the new Florida law that prohibits open containers in cars, that pertained to golf carts also. That's the only thing before 1998. In September of 1998, the City Council passed its first ordinance about golf carts. It was Ordinance 981. And that ordinance allowed anyone over the age of 16 with a valid driver's license to operate a golf cart on city streets going to and from the golf course. That's the only way you could have ridden a golf cart in Temple Terrace, was going to and from the golf course. They had to have a decal provided by the country club, and that was administered by the country club. And golf carts were prohibited from going across the state and county road, 56th Street and Fowler, and only could cross at Bullard Parkway at Glenarvan Light or the tunnels. In May of 2012, the City Council modified the ordinance to what our rules are currently. Golf carts can be driven on any of the City of Temple Terrace internal streets with the same restrictions to the state and county roads. If the cart is registered and decaled by the city and have the safety items like brakes, horns, windshields, turn signals, things like that. Operators must have a valid driver's license or permit, learner's permit. I couldn't find any information if a learner's permit had to have an adult with them or not. Maybe we could figure that out, but I don't really know. But those are the same requirements that that was yes from the back, Chief, thank you. Same requirements as to drive a car. And also the same requirements that is a new state law, which our ordinance is just a little stricter. Now these are the decals. They are $10 for a year. They are available from the Family Recreation Complex. There's a membership form. You have to put all the information about your cart and you get those. And with this, there used to be a joke in through the city that you could tell the start of summer because the teenagers were driving golf carts through the city. That is illegal unless, of course, your teenager is the right age and has a driver's license. So there's this. Also, this is a very good brochure that is, again, available at the Family Recreation Complex, and it tells all about the city's golf cart ordinances. And, of course, we know golf carts are a great way to drive through the city. You can now go to the one grocery store that's in the legal boundaries, but you can drive around, go to the rec centers, the library, all that. Also, for this year, the 4th of July parade, the Leisure Services Department is having what they're calling the Citizens Brigade for golf carts. Usually, some groups have golf carts in and out, but this time, any citizen that has a golf cart and wants to be in the parade, just contact Leisure Services. I think it's $5 to be in the parade, and there'll be a mass group of golf carts somewhere in the parade staging area. So that's coming up on the 4th. So that's it on golf carts.
Thank you, council member. Be sure to pick up that brochure because you cannot drive down Fowler Avenue on a golf cart. So I can't drive here because I live on the other side of Fowler Avenue, so I do not have a golf cart. Okay, so our first item of business is a proclamation for Code Enforcement Week. And I see we have our whole crew here, but our director, Tom Baroni, is here to receive the proclamation. And it reads as thus, says, whereas code enforcement officers provide for the safety, health, and welfare of the citizens of Temple Terrace through the enforcement of building, zoning, housing, animal control, fire safety, environmental, and other codes and ordinances. And code enforcement officers are responsible for improving neighborhoods and the quality of lives of the residents in Temple Terrace. And every day, assisted by support and program staff, they attempt to provide quality customer service to the public for the betterment of the community. And whereas too many times their efforts go unnoticed, even after code compliance has been accomplished due to their efforts and expertise. And code enforcement officers are dedicated, well-trained, highly responsible individuals who take their job seriously and are proud of their department and the city of Temple Terrace. Now therefore I, Andy Ross, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Temple Terrace, Florida, do hereby proclaim June 3rd through 7th, 2024 as Code Enforcement Officers Appreciation Week. And so Tom, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, I would. Thank you very much and good evening. Mayor Ross, Vice Mayor Abel, and city council members, on behalf of the 3,400 code officers throughout the state of Florida, we just want to say thank you very much for this proclamation. So thank you.
Well, thank you, and I see you have your staff here. And I want to thank all of you for the work you do. It's a very thankless job at times, and we're all everybody up here is well aware of that. And many times the fruits of your work are sometimes difficult to see because a few, unfortunately, properties go into disrepair and people wonder, oh, what's code enforcement doing? When in fact, due to legal restraints, are hung up in the legal system and kind of exhausted our options. So you guys do a tremendous job. I hope you know that. I hope you know the whole council appreciates what you do and the city does too. So thank you, Tom.
Would you mind if my group come up?
Not at all.
We have the group picture for the last 3 years. I'm trying to keep that tradition.
Everybody but Doug's okay.
All right. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Our next item of business is an appointment and alternate appointment, and we're going to do the regular appointment first, to the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. There's a regular member vacancy due to a resignation and an alternate member vacancy on the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. The city received 2 applications, one from Jennifer Rembus, I hope I said that correct, and a second from Austin Peterson. Jennifer Rimbus' hobbies include walking and cycling. Austin Peterson works for FDOT and has had exposure to how BPACs operate and familiar with the numerous bicycle and pedestrian improvements on FDOT roadways. So, council, what we've done, the clerk and I discussed how to try to do this in an orderly fashion, and so we've come up with a ballot. That hopefully is orderly enough to delineate which of these applicants is appointed to which vacancy. And so if you would please, are either of the candidates here, the applicants here? Okay, good. So if you would pass that down, and we'll let the clerk tabulate the results. Thank you. So I just want to say to both of the applicants, if they're watching or if they watch at a future date, that we appreciate both of your volunteer, I'm talking to you, but appreciate everybody who applies for these positions, and whether you're selected as the regular member or the alternate member, it's not a reflection of how much we value your service. It's just simply a calculation of who we think has the most expertise in that area. So it's we're very happy to have both of you. And council, once the results are known, we'll need on this particular agenda item to appoint simply the regular member, and the next agenda item we will appoint the alternate member.
So it was unanimous that everyone voted for Austin Peterson as the regular member and Jennifer as the alternate.
Okay, council members, is there a motion to that effect?
I move to approve Austin Peterson for the regular Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee.
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays. Motion carries. The next item is a motion to approve the appointment of Jennifer Rembitz as the alternate member.
Move to approve Jennifer Rembis as the alternate to the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee.
Second.
Is there discussion of the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays. Very good. Thank you both for your service. We've gotten better at that. We used to get all tangled up on these. We've gotten better. Next is an appointment to the Hillsborough County Building Board of Adjustment. There's a vacancy on the Hillsborough County Building Board of Adjustment for a term extending from July 7th, 2024 until July 7th, 2028. The city received an application from Michael McEnany. McEnany. Thank you, Mr. Ritter. He has 38 years' experience with commercial roofing and general contracting and has served on the Hillsborough County Building BOA since 2016. Is there a motion?
Move to approve Mike McEnany to the Hillsborough County Building Board of Adjustment.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays. Thank you for your service also. There is a vacancy on the Municipal Code Enforcement Board for one alternate member for a term extending from June 4th, 2024 until June 4th, 2027. The city received an application from Taylor Williams. Is Ms. Williams here? Hello, Ms. Williams. Would you like to say a few words? You don't have to. It's up to you. You're welcome to if you care to.
I just opened it.
Thank you, Mayor Ross.
Welcome.
And City Council for having me. I don't bring relevant professional experience to the Code Board. However, I've been a high school teacher for 14 of my 16 years teaching, and the value of rules and regulations that make our community great are very important to the betterment of Temple Terrace in general. And you were right, Mayor Ross, when you said that oftentimes code enforcement is thankless work, but not by my family and not by our community. And the reason that people choose Temple Terrace as a place to live is because of the high standards that we set. So I hope to continue to maintain the standards that make Temple Terrace beautiful, while also recognizing that oftentimes things happen that are out of the control of our residents, and hope to bring a little bit of the grace and observance of the needs of our I'm sorry, I'm losing my, I'm a little nervous. The grace of our community to this, the same grace I offer the high school kids. So thank you for having me.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Williams. Council members, is there a motion?
Yes, move to appoint Taylor Williams to the Municipal Code Enforcement Board alternate member.
Second.
Who got the second? Meredith get it first?
Yeah, okay.
Vice Mayor got it first? Okay.
Vice Mayor got it.
Okay, we have motion second by the Vice Mayor. Any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, very good. Thank you. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes of our May 21st meeting?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. Corrections, discussion of the minutes? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no nays, the minutes are adopted. Persons wishing to speak on items not listed on the agenda or items on the consent agenda, there are forms for this at the rear of the building. If there are people who wish to address the council at this time, I currently have no requests to speak. Okay. Next, consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve consent agenda.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor? Aye. Very good. Consent agenda is adopted. Next item is a resolution approving the interlocal agreement for the distribution of the proceeds of the community investment tax to be levied from December 1st, 2026 through December 31st, 2041, assuming that it passes on the ballot. And we have Greg Horwoodall, our Deputy County Administrator, here to discuss this. Greg, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, City Manager. Very much appreciate the time that you've afforded me to go through very briefly, I promise you, presentation that we're giving for all of our municipal partners and others who are interested in what the community investment tax is, what it's done over the past 28 years, and what we would like to see it do over the next 15 years. So with that, see if I can bring it up. Oh. Yeah, we got to get that very important cover slide. So first I want to bring you greetings from my boss, Bonnie Weiss, County Administrator, and County Commissioner Chairman Ken Hagan. Unfortunately, Mr. Hagan was planning on being here, but he had something come up at the very last minute and could not make it. But he asked me to please extend his regrets, so I'm doing that, and I know he did want to be here. So, CIT. What is the CIT? It's Community Investment Tax. It is a tax that the voters approved in a special election back in 1996. It is a tax that is a 0.5% of sales tax. It's not a full percent as the statute might allow. You can either do for this tax a 0.5% or a full percent. The reason that Hillsborough County does a 0.5% is because we also have a 0.5% indigent care tax. So that, because of that combination, we're limited to the 1%, and that's why we have focused on the 0.5%. It is levied by an ordinance from the County Commission. They have the sole authority to levy the ordinance, but we want to embrace and engage our community partners. So we have set up a mechanism so that we share those proceeds with all of our municipal partners because it is a countywide tax. Please note that you can use it to plan and finance capital infrastructure. You cannot, and I want to emphasize this, you cannot use it for operational expenses. So everything that we build, fire stations, roads, they all need maintenance and operation, correct? Well, we can't use this tax for any of the operating costs for those fire stations. We can't pay for firefighters. We can't pay for the sheriff's deputies, but we can pay for all the capital equipment that's necessary for us to provide public safety and meet our transportation needs throughout the community. So how has it been distributed? And I'd like to point out that although we did this in '96, we have sort of a different arrangement that we're going to be going through this time around, and I'll talk about that in our last slide as to what the board actually authorized and we're here to present to you today. So back in '96, off the top, there was going to be 25% of the revenue given to the school district because at the time in 1996, the school district did not have a separate funding source. Today they do. In fact, they're using it. They can get up to a 0.5 cent on the sales tax as well. They're using that for their buildings. You'll see that they also have a proposal to add a millage, 1 mil, to all of the properties in Hillsborough County to help support their teacher salaries. I'm not here to talk about that. I'm sure you can get the superintendent to talk about that, but I did want to make you aware that that is something that may appear on the ballot as well, along with this initiative. So those dollars came right off the top. There was more money, about $9 million a year, it fluctuated depending upon what the sales tax receipts were, that went to the stadium. A lot of people who were here in '96 sometimes refer to this as the stadium tax. I want to assure you, they've received over the course of the 28 years that it's been in effect, about 9% of the total. It has been used by far much more for transportation and public safety and cultural assets in all of our communities. Yes, the stadium does receive money for capital infrastructure. We are obligated to make sure that we provide a stadium to meet NFL standards. That means that we're on the hook as the county to make sure that everything is maintained in an orderly way, and frankly, it has to meet NFL standards. After that, the remaining distribution goes per the state half-cent shared sales tax formula. And you can see the percentage there on your screen. Those of you who are behind me probably can't see it all that well, but approximately 75% goes to the county, 22% goes to Tampa, Plant City 2.2%, and Temple Terrace about 1.5% over the last 28 years. I would note that the county gets a slight extra bump. It's not a straight population percentage. If it were, the county would only receive about 69%. The reason the legislature did it this way and allows us to get that slight bit of extra is because we engage in projects throughout the community that may be in your area, Tampa, or Plant City that benefit the entire county. For example, pet resources, facility that desperately needs to be improved, that is a countywide function. Everyone can bring their animals to the pet resources facility, but we fund that through a combination of CIT and countywide general fund dollars. And I truly hope I'm not boring anyone with this. This is, I mean, somewhat exciting to me because it's very esoteric, but I get that it's not everybody's dinner table conversation. So you can see from the revenues that have been received, Hillsborough County has received the most at about $1.2 billion over the last 28 years. Your jurisdiction, and I cannot read that number because it's way too small. I used to, I think it was about 27 million, is that correct? Yes. So you have used it, as I understand it, for quite a number of capital improvements in your community. The expenditures by category, again, these are all available on hcfl.gov/CIT. All of the monies, the approximate $2.3 billion that's been collected, has a project associated with it. You can go to the county website and you can see the vast variety of capital projects that have been paid for with this to really improve our community. Fire stations, roads, cultural amenities. Really, it's everything from A to Z when it comes to capital items, not only in your community, but also the communities throughout the county. So our capital project expenditures, most people would be surprised out of the little over $1 billion that the county has received to find out that we've spent 50% of those dollars, approximately 49%, on transportation improvements. So from our perspective, that's incredibly important to make sure that our community can get to the jobs they need to go to get to the parks. Having those investments is extremely critical for us to make sure that we stay a pace of growth. The rest of it is public safety, and then you can see down the list all of the other expenditures that we've made. This is just a flash slide to show you some of the representative projects, lots of big ones. The zoo, Citrus Park Drive, you all may be familiar with that one. Plant City City Hall actually was built with CIT dollars. So why are we doing this now? The tax expires in 2 years, but in order for us to adequately plan for the massive capital needs of the community, we need about 2 years. So this will generate significant revenue. We'll talk about that in a future slide. But what's important here is that we've got about 23,000 people a year over the last several years who have moved into Hillsborough County. You can see from the breakdown on the slide, unincorporated county, about 83% of that growth has occurred there. Plant City has seen a little over 56%. Tampa and Temple Terrace both have seen 40% growth, and as those of you who have been here a long time, you can attest to the fact it's been huge amount of an impact on our community. We need more facilities, we need more roads, we need more police vehicles, we need more fire stations. I think what's particularly interesting is that we're projecting that by 2050, this county will house over 2 million residents. So that's why we need to renew this tax. We need the dollars to be able to support the infrastructure that is no doubt going to accompany the new people moving into Hillsborough County and Temple Terrace. I think it was pretty interesting when I looked at the call volume. Our call volume is increased by 191% for Hillsborough County for fire rescue. That's a tremendous amount. For the sheriff, very similar. The calls that they're making now are far in excess of what they were even 10 years ago. I think what's really important on this slide too, again, those of you who can't see it, but I'll try to describe it as best I can. Our sidewalks, for example, have expanded exponentially. From here to Seattle, Washington would be the length of our sidewalk network, which is phenomenal. We have a lot of repairs that need to be made on that system because it's antiquated and frankly hasn't been well maintained. It will take us approximately, to fix every crack, every gap, every broken sidewalk, it will take us approximately $600 million just in unincorporated Hillsborough County. Think about that just for a minute. That's a tremendous amount of money that needs to be invested so that we can make sure we have safe sidewalks, not just for those who are strolling in the evening, but for the children on their way to schools, for handicapped folks in wheelchairs. All of those needs need to be met with investment in infrastructure. I would point out that our roads are only 31% higher, and as I looked at that initially, I scratched my head and wondered why, and I'll tell you, as we looked at the investment of these dollars, we have not had enough to expand our road network commensurate with what our population growth has been. So if you think our road network is bad today, imagine how bad it would be if 28 years ago, the board and the community had not adopted the CIT, and we didn't have those dollars to invest in our roads and our sidewalks. The project categories that we looked at, frankly, are all in statute. There are 4 very basic categories: transportation and public works, public safety, public facilities, and public utilities. All of those are eligible to be fixed, repaired, installed with CIT dollars. So these are very small numbers for everybody in the back. What this means, though, over the 15 years, if this is approved, that Temple Terrace will receive over $53 million. What we've factored in is some anticipated growth, $200,000 starting off, but growing at a 3% annual rate. So all in all, I think from our perspective, it provides a substantial funding source for the community, not just in Temple Terrace, but through the entire county. Timeline, I can tell you there's been a lot of work done thus far. We've had the board in April authorize this to go on the ballot. We're working now to get out to all the jurisdictions and talk about the benefits of the CIT. We can't advocate for it. We can educate, which is what I'm doing here today, but we can't tell people to vote one way or the other, and I won't do that today. Everyone has to make their own decision as to whether they think this is a good investment to continue on in the future. We are right now going through the OPAGA audit. That's a state mandate that requires us to have an audit of the CIT program. The last time we went through this, we came through with flying colors. I expect no less this time. We have strong accounting and finance team that make sure that we track the nickels and the dimes and make our expenditures on time and appropriately. So we have an interlocal, which you all are talking about today, that needs to be approved by August 1. The project list, and I know you'll be talking about that in a subsequent meeting. Frankly, I'm happy to come back if you would like. I'm not sure, if you want to hear me talk again. Happy to do it if you do. Talk to you about the county's list, because that all has to be done by August 1st. If not, the enabling legislation of the ordinance says it's not done by August 1st, it doesn't go on the ballot this year. So we're working very hard with our partners to make sure all of us get everything done that we need to. Come November, we have the decision, and we'll find out whether the community believes that this needs to be renewed, and hopefully we'll be able to start planning. So what the board approved, 15-year term. There was a lot of discussion about whether we go to a 30-year term or a 20-year term. The board felt that 15 years was an appropriate time frame in today's environment. They felt that if we were successful in delivering projects over 15 years, we could come back and do it again in 15 years. There's a number of communities around us, Pasco, Pinellas, they only do it for 10 years. They're a little different because they can levy a 1 cent ad valorem tax. We cannot. They can generate quite a bit more than we can. So from our perspective, we need to make sure that we're maximizing the dollars available for these critical infrastructure projects. 15 years, we think, is an appropriate time frame for us to be able to demonstrate we can continue to hold the faith in the community and those infrastructure improvements that they've entrusted us with. 70% can be bonded, but the rest cannot be bonded. And the board felt pretty strongly about this. The reason for that is that in '96, when we first adopted this, we bonded probably about 95% right off the bat. It was only until the last 2 to 3 years that we've had excess revenue over what the debt service payment is. So we call that pay-go dollars. That's one-time money that enables us to make improvements and investments in things that may have popped up since 1996. And I assure you, there are a number of things that have popped up. As I mentioned earlier, everything needs to be done before August 1st. There needs to be some private sector outreach because, as I said earlier, I can't advocate, but presumably somebody will advocate. Don't know who that is just yet. Happy to work with them to provide them the information and any education material that we can. I'd like to close by pointing out that this tax is somewhat unique. It's been estimated that about 20% of this tax is paid for by people who live outside of our community. So if you had somebody who was willing to help you pay 20% of your mortgage and didn't want to live with you, I think almost all of us would want to take them up on that. With that, I'm available to answer any questions. I thank you very much for your gracious time, and I look forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Horwood. Also, before I open it up for public comment and questions, I just want to clarify for everybody that the issue before the council tonight is not whether we're not asking anybody to support the CIT or not support the CIT. You will get to vote your vote in November, and each of us will get to vote for that in November. The action item before us tonight is simply to approve or disapprove the interlocal agreement that governs the distribution of the funds if the tax passes. So I want to clarify that for everybody because somebody's going to say tomorrow, oh, the council approved the CIT last night. We don't get to do that. The voters get to do that. So the only thing that we're deciding tonight is the distribution of those funds. And the proposed interlocal agreement, the formula reflects the language that's contained in state statute. When I open it up for public comment, I mean, you can say what you want, but we're really not appropriate to say whether you're for or against CIT because you get to vote on that. So, okay, are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? I said all that for nothing. Okay, council members, questions? Well, let's see. I heard her first. Councilmember Fernandez.
So, I mean, just to clarify, for projects that the county can support, if we have a project happening in the city of Temple Terrace, but it's Temple Terrace only, for example, a new fire station that's primarily going to serve our residents, the county cannot help fund that project from CIT.
So we could, but we have our own fire stations to support. We would look to you all to handle your primary needs. If, for example, there were something, let's just say for sake of argument, a county road through Temple Terrace, we could expend county funds on that and make sure that road was improved so that it would benefit the residents of Temple Terrace, but also the benefits of Hillsborough benefit Hillsborough County residents as well.
So that's your primary criteria for, because obviously we're all within Hillsborough County, so any project we have is within the county. But your criteria would be that it needs to serve the larger population of Hillsborough County versus more city-specific.
So if you look at it in different way, the unincorporated portion of Hillsborough County, we have approximately 1.5 million residents now. There's about 1 million residents who live in the unincorporated portion of Hillsborough County. So that's, if you want to call it this, it's the city of Hillsborough County. That's where, much like you would spend your dollars there, we would spend our dollars in the unincorporated area to serve our residents there. That doesn't mean, as I said earlier, that we wouldn't entertain joint proposals, depending upon what they might be. If there's something in particular that the city of Temple Terrace wanted to consider, we're happy to do that.
And then also, I wanted to ask, since the schools have developed their own funding and they're looking at putting a millage on the ballot as well, why are we including 5% of this community investment as going to schools?
That's a great question, Councilwoman. We had quite a bit of conversation about that with our board, and the board felt that there was still a need to help support the schools. They showed, I believe it was 9 schools that had a total cost of $244 million over the next 15 years. 5% will generate only $187 million, so the school district will have to figure out how they're going to close that gap. So that there is still a need. I think our board recognized that, but they didn't want to go to the 25% level or anything less than the 5%.
Councilmember Chambers, I'll just work down. Councilmember Schisler.
Yeah, I have three quick questions. Number one, the transportation expenditures.
Yes, sir.
Is that better just defined as roads?
Roads, sidewalks, trails.
Okay.
There are bridges included in there as well.
But it's,
Many-
it's on the ground. It's not any kind of mechanized transportation
That's correct.
opportunities. Okay, all right, just wanted to clarify that. The bondable portion, the 70% is going to be bondable. Is that statutory, or is that
Nope.
just arbitrary number by the?
So I'm not sure I would call it arbitrary.
Well, okay, but I mean, it was set by the BOCC.
That is correct.
Right.
And they spent some time discussing that. And what they wanted to do is provide flexibility for emerging needs for every community. So you may have something that pops up that could be paid for with CIT if you had the revenue available. If you bonded it all, you wouldn't have that revenue available.
So the 70% applies to everybody?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, and then the last question is, how long is the indigent care tax? And he said, was that into perpetuity?
Yes, it is. In perpetuity, yes.
Okay. All right, that's all I had. That's all I had.
Vice Mayor?
My question was related to the indigent care tax as well. And did I understand correctly when you said that the CIT can only be up to half a cent because the indigent care tax is in place?
Yes, Vice Mayor, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I don't have any questions, Greg. Thank you.
I appreciate it, and I will close with this. I will say that your mayor and your city manager have represented the city of Temple Terrace extremely.
Of the proceeds of the community investment tax to be levied from December 1st, 2026 through December 31st, 2041.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a comment.
Councilmember Fernandez.
I am going to vote in favor of this. I'm generally in favor of this interlocal agreement. However, I would like to say I do not agree with the 5% allocation to the school district as they have their own funding source.
Services contract with MSL PA, and our finance director, Jim Ingram, is here to explain. Good evening, Mr. Ingram.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. The city's audit services contract with MSL PA for fiscal years 2021, 2022, and 23 expired with the completion of the fiscal year 23 CRA audit in May 2024. That was the final piece. This resolution is to approve a new audit services contract with MSLPA for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2024, and the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2025. The annual cost for each is $54,000 for the financial audit and $3,000 for the community redevelopment area audit, totaling $50,000 for each year. If a single audit to report federal award expenditures exceeding $750,000 is necessary, the cost will be an additional $2,500 per year. Due to the escalation of project expenditures funded through ARPA, staff anticipates that this will be necessary for the next 2 years. The audit committee, established by the City Council to oversee the audit selection process and compliance as defined in Florida Statutes 219.391, met with MSLPA on May 2nd, 2024 to discuss the results of the 2023 financial audit and a proposal from Jeff Wolf, partner of the MSLPA, for the city to retain auditing services with the firm for an additional 2 years for fiscal year 2024 and fiscal year 2025. The committee agreed that retaining MSLPA at this time would be the most advantageous direction to the city due to recent changes in city staff and management. The committee agreed that soliciting proposals to bid for audit services should be initiated by staff, starting with the audit services for fiscal year 2026. Staff anticipates the work to initiate the request for proposals will begin in the summer of 2025. After consulting with City Manager Bahia and reviewing the city's purchasing policies, the city manager also deemed initiating an RFP for either fiscal year 2024 or fiscal year 2025 audit services would not be advantageous at this time for the city for the same reasons cited by the audit committee. This in compliance with the city's purchasing policy, this is in compliance with the city's purchasing policy for exceptions to soliciting bids for items exceeding $50,000. And staff recommends that council adopt a resolution approving the 2-year contract with MSLPA. And I stand for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Ingham. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Council member questions. Councilmember Fernandez.
So does the city have a policy that requires us to change auditors in a certain time period?
No, there's no policy of a certain restriction on the number of years or the number of renewals. However, it is good practice not to go beyond 10 years. This will, I think, extend our contracts with MSL for a total of 8 years. So we are getting to the point where we do need, as much as we like their services and they've done excellent work, common good standard practice would be to go out to bid for the next round.
So, so then, now I'm going to the cost part. Does ARPA count as one federal award, or is it an individual federal award for each project that we're doing?
Well, in terms of
I'm asking about the single audit. And
the single audit, right. You report, we've already received the ARPA money, which was $13 million, but as you spend it, you record the amount that you're spending toward the revenue. You're booking the revenue. So if we were to spend over $750,000 in a year on any number of ARPA projects, a combination or just one ARPA project. If we hit that threshold, then we have to do a single audit. We did not hit, we came close, but we did not hit that for 2023. But again, with the escalation of our projects now in going into from design to construction, we will most certainly hit that for 2024.
So the 2,500 would be, because this would count all spending on all projects, would count basically towards one single audit, not multiple single audits, then
That's
the
correct.
price
It's one
increase would be
single
25.
audit, right.
That's,
Right.
that was all I wanted to clarify.
Okay.
Councilmember Chambers? Councilmember Schisler? Really? Talking about finance stuff?
I vetted this in the
Oh, okay.
audit committee.
Okay. Vice Mayor? Very good. Thank you, Mr. Ingham. Appreciate this. Council members, is there a motion?
Yes. I move to approve the 2-year audit service contract with MSL for, to be paid from account 001-1212-513.32-11.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion of the motion? All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays. Resolution's adopted. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Ingham.
you.
Next item is a second public hearing and second reading of ordinance 1564, adopting a rezoning of folio numbers 201-594-0000 and 201-593-0000 with an address of 8727 Overlook Drive. I'll open the public hearing and ask anyone who intends to speak on this matter to please stand and be sworn in by the city clerk.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Clerk. City Attorney, would you please poll the council for ex parte communications?
If any council member has received any ex parte communication regarding this matter, please state so at this time. If your communication was in writing, you will need to provide a copy of that document to the clerk for public record. Whether it's in writing or orally, please state with whom you had that communication, when that occurred, and the sum and substance of the communication, and starting with Councilmember Fernandez.
I have none.
I have nothing new since last meeting.
Correct.
I've had none.
I've had none.
I was asked by Sherry Donahue about the number of waivers for the overlook properties. I looked over the waivers and I asked community development about them, and I told her what the waivers were for.
And do you know when that occurred?
I can give you the exact date. It was within the last couple of days.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Very good. Thank you. All right, Mr. Sherman, you are up.
All right, thank you, sir, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Tonight, for consideration by the city council, is a rezoning petition, RZP 2305. This is the 8727 Overlook Drive. There's two parcels involved. This is the second reading and second and final public hearing of this application. There's the owners and the applicants on that slide up there. Okay, so this is general area map showing the area which this properties will be being rezoned for. The location again is 8727 Overlook Drive. It is in the downtown community redevelopment area, the CRA. It has a current future land use map category of DMU 35. That's downtown mixed use 35 up to a maximum of 35 dwelling units per acre. The proposed zoning is PD, and the parcel size on this particular one is 0.545 acres, a little bit more than a half an acre. And as the council knows, in our land development code, requires that all rezonings in the CRA be rezoned to the Planned Development Zoning District, or PD. The applicant proposes in this instance to develop 8 units of attached housing on the site, and these will be, as you see by the concept plan, sort of in a duplex layout. The subject property is surrounded by single-family uses to the south and west, and multifamily and a cemetery to the east, and commercial uses are to the north of this property. Okay, so this is a conceptual site plan. One thing that's required with a PD district is that a conceptual site plan or master plan be provided. This particular one, we worked with the applicant a whole lot through our DRC process, and this is what we ended up with. It's the development of two-story, two-unit townhomes sharing a common wall. It's located on two parcels. The site will be accessed from Overlook Drive, and a detailed site plan and a subdivision plat will follow this if it's approved by the City Council. Okay, so there's a whole lot of waivers with this particular one and then the next one, and they kind of all stem from that first waiver. But one of the reasons there's a lot of waivers, because when we're in the downtown, especially in the residential areas, we're working with a number of different plans and documents. And we've all got to make them come together and get a product that the city would want to approve. So we're dealing with the comprehensive plan and the future land use map categories. We have our CRA plan we're working with. We have the downtown community redevelopment plan overlay zoning district. And we have a PD zoning district, which they're going to. One of the main reasons we're having all these waivers requested is that the minimum gross lot area required for townhomes is 10 acres. And in this particular one, we don't have any 10-acre parcels in the downtown area. And these waivers come from the RMF zoning district. So our code says that if you're going to do a PD, that you should pick a zoning district which most closely documents or closely mimics what you want to build, and that is the RMF zoning district. One of the first requirements for townhomes is you've got to have 10 acres. This does not meet that 10-acre site, but to get the densities and intensity of use that the council has, we've got to work with the properties we have. So it's going to be the request for this waiver goes from 10 acres to 0.545 acres. They're asking for a reduction in the minimum common open space from 1,500 square feet per dwelling unit to 1,425 square feet. The side setbacks will be reduced from 19.6 feet to 5 feet. Again, if you're working with a 10-acre site, that's relatively easy to meet. The entry yard side setbacks go from 15 feet to 8.65 feet. And those are the distances between the various duplexes, which you saw on the site plan. We're asking for a reduction in parking from 17.6 to 16 spaces. The fencing compatibility and variations with design of the principal building. Basically, the code says you should try and have your fence reflect the architecture of your buildings, and they're asking for a waiver from that. The fencing in this particular site will be PVC with vinyl material, and it won't be any higher than 6 feet. And they're asking to reduce the minimum number of townhouses from 4 to 2. Our code says for townhouses, you've got to have a minimum of 4 units stacked, and this would be just 2, as you can see in that site plan there. Another thing that we've got to address in the downtown area is architectural standards. And as the council knows, the architectural standards in downtown try and have a Spanish Mediterranean style architecture. The applicant has worked really hard on the previous Overlook 1. This is Overlook 3. They're doing the same thing. So this is what the front elevation for these townhouses would look like. This is the rear elevation, side elevation. One other thing, when it comes to the architectural standards, we need to make sure that various items that we look at in the land development code are reflected in the elevations, and that's massing, building facades, the roof forms, details and materials, the window treatments, and the building entrances. When we look at all of those, this meets those design standards which are required in our CRA and the downtown overlay zoning district. I think I hit the wrong one. Okay, so on December 26, 2023, the Hillsborough County City County Planning Commission reviewed this and made a recommendation for approval At the council meeting on May 24th, the council recommended or approved on first reading the rezoning classification from R10 to PD. That is my presentation tonight. The applicant is in the audience. We are recommending approval, and I can answer any questions that the council may have.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. Do you know if the applicant intends to make a?
I don't know. They may want to make a comment. No. Unless y'all, yes, sir.
Thank you. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Okay, council members, you all have heard this before. This is the first time for me. So are there questions for Mr. Sherman? I just, can you bring the slide back up that addresses the waivers?
Yes, sir, I will try and do that.
Okay, give me just a minute, because I read this in the backup and I was reading it again while you were talking, but I was trying to read and listen at the same time. So there was a question. So reduce the required inter-yard side setbacks. I think you said that's the distance between the buildings? Okay.
And again, if you have 10 acres, these distances aren't that hard to meet.
Reduce the side setback from 19.5 feet to 5 feet. So there'll be 5 feet between the end buildings and the fence.
In the property lines, yes.
And the property line. Is there any concern with that in turn? I don't know where the utilities run there. Do they run on the street side or behind or? Does he need to be sworn to answer that? Okay. Okay.
I actually do not know. I would assume they're street sides. Generally, that's where they are in that location. Most of our rear setback easements are located in the southern part of the peninsula area, the older parts of the city.
Okay. Are there any other concerns with this narrow, because 5 feet, you can't even get a big mower through there. I mean, that's pretty close. Okay. Can you bring that slide back up?
Yes, sir. There you go.
So, Mr. Sherman, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but if you don't know, it's fine because it's not really due. But do you know when this code was developed that requires 10 acres for townhomes, do you know when that was enacted, how old that is? Was that something that was done in 2010 or 1970? Do you have any idea?
It was done before the CRA plans were done.
So it goes back a ways.
So it goes back a ways, yes. And that's why it's like almost shoehorning those standards into our CRA, which we're able to do. The applicants are pretty easy to work with, and so.
Do we have other comparable projects like this in the city that you're aware of that we've approved? I don't remember any with 5 feet.
Overlook 1 is very similar to this, and that's across the street. Excuse me, that's across the street on the other one we'll talk about. Yes, sir.
So right across the street has.
An overlook at the intersection of Overlook and Grove Hill as well, very close to that.
Close, I mean,
Yes, sir.
5 or 6 feet. Okay. Council members, was there concern raised about this at the last, I didn't see anything in the minutes about that.
The primary concern raised is from the longtime residents that they don't believe the 2-story and the intensity is consistent with their neighborhood.
I read some of that. But the 2-story would be compatible under R10 anyway, right?
Yes, sir. We
So the
would
height
allow a
restrictions
2-story.
don't change.
Right.
So regardless of whether we pass this or not, they could still get a 2-story.
Right.
Their contention was the property values. It was so, the design was so different from the existing houses that it would give, that it would.
But those houses were built, what, in the 50s? I mean, we're not built in
Well,
1950s.
they were content with what they had. They were all long-term owners.
Councilmember?
I'm pretty sure I asked a question about if did our planning staff approve the waivers, and the answer was yes.
We're recommending approval of the
Recommended
waivers, yes, sir.
approval. There were no objections to the waivers.
Okay. Can you put them back up one more time, please?
Yes, sir.
Do some 10 to .5. Here's one more. Reduce the minimum common open space from 1,500 square foot per dwelling to, okay, never mind, that's negligible. Side setback, we talked about. Inner yards, we talked about. Parking spaces, I don't know how you'd come up with 17.6 to begin with,
I
but
think it's like 2.2 spaces.
that's that golf cart parking that you're always talking about. Fencing, 4 to 2. Okay.
Spelled vinyl wrong, I can't
Thank you, Mr. Sherman.
spell that word.
Okay, council members, is there, oh, I'm sorry, I will close the public hearing and ask the clerk to read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, rezoning .545 acres of real property within the downtown community development area, redevelopment area, located approximately 540 feet south of the intersection of Overlook Drive and Bush Boulevard, with an address of 8727 Overlook Drive, folio numbers 201-594-0000 and 201-593-0000, from zoning classification, single-family residential R10 to plan development PD, providing for amendment to the official zoning map of the city, providing severability and effective date, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Council, is there a motion?
Move to approve ordinance 1564 upon second public hearing and second reading.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion?
I'm sorry.
Oh.
There's possibility that somebody in the audience did have something to say about this.
Microphone.
So
Can you start over, please?
I wanted to make sure that anybody in the audience who was raising their hand and wanted to speak had that opportunity. So I don't know if.
I did ask.
Well, they didn't say anything, and I guess their hand wasn't recognized. So before you do the motion and vote on that, we probably need to reopen the public comment section, part of this, and let the person speak.
Okay, but I did ask, and nobody spoke up at that time.
You're right, they didn't speak, but they were just sitting there waving their hands, so I don't know what else to say.
Okay, so I need to open the public hearing again.
Yes, to reopen the public hearing again. So,
Okay, we will reopen a second public hearing and second reading of ordinance 1564, adopting a rezoning of folio numbers 201-594-0000 and 201-593-000 with an address of 8727 Overlook Drive. Mrs. Rennie?
I had put my hand up, you didn't see. Annette Rennie, 9512 Woodland Ridge Drive. I'm opposed to this, as are several other people, because what you're doing is making exceptions, several exceptions. And when you do that, you set a precedence, especially when you're building. And I think that it's really not fair to the locals. And then we go to another project and they say, well, you did it for this person, why are you not considering it for us? So here we are, we're setting a precedence on building and setbacks and frontage and square footage and space between townhomes. Not right. Sorry. Thank you.
There are other members of the public who wish to comment on this? Council members, anything before I close the public hearing again? Okay. The applicant.
Yeah. I just wanted to follow up a couple things.
Please just
Charlie
state your name
Thomas.
for the,
Charlie Thomas, I have been sworn. So those waivers are potential waivers and calls for zero line setbacks. So what we're actually asking for is not a reduction of the multifamily townhome, because that doesn't actually apply here. They said that, Mr. Sherman was sharing, they have to pick a similar zoning district to mimic and say this is what it would look like to get through this portion, which is the rezoning portion. When we come back to the site plan portion where the rezoning is now the downtown overlay district, the downtown overlay district outlines, no different than it outlines the design of the building, it outlines the setback, the green space, and all of that. It's all regulated in the CRA. So those waivers are potential waivers, but they have to do those because we have to have a basis to come before you. But in reality, because it's in the CRA, It's compatible with the CRA because that's what you guys have said that you want in the CRA, 0 line setbacks. And what we're asking for are actually reductions against that. We're asking for a 10-foot front yard setback instead of a 0 front yard setback, which is required of the CRA, inside the CRA. So I just wanted to bring that for clarity that we're not asking for exemptions against that, the townhome zoning. It doesn't apply to the CRA district, which is what this parcel is located. Thank you.
Council, questions for the applicant while he's up? Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, so the public hearing is still open. Anything? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. Mr. Schoen, we have a motion. Do we need to restate the motion at this point now that we've reopened the?
It's been stated.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Are there comments on the motion? Okay, all those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Opposed? No nays. The ordinance 1564 is adopted on second reading. Next item is the first public hearing and first reading of an ordinance adopting a rezoning of folio number 201600-0000 with an address of 8702 Overlook Drive. I'll open the public hearing and ask anyone who intends to speak on this matter to stand and be sworn in by the city clerk.
Yes.
Very good, thank you. And City Attorney, would you please poll the council for ex parte communications?
If any member of council has had an ex parte communication with regard to this particular item, now is the time to state what it is. Please provide the date when this occurred, with whom you had this communication, and the sum and substance of the communication. If it was in writing, please provide a copy of that to the clerk as soon as possible. And if it was, and whether it was in writing or orally, you need to provide that information at this time, starting with Council Member Fernandez.
I have none.
I've had none.
I've had none.
I've had none.
The one I had before might have been about this one because it was about Overlook in general, and now I know the date. It was Friday, May 31st.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you. And Community Director Mike Sherman will explain.
Good evening again, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Tonight, for the council's consideration, is the first public hearing and first reading of an ordinance adopting a rezoning at 8702 Overlook Drive. Okay, this is RZP 2304, changing the rezoning from, or the property from R10 to PD zoning district. The Planning Commission staff report is consistent with the city's. I'm sorry. This is the applicant's. I'm sorry, I was like, I didn't even recognize that. Felt like I was having a senior moment or something. Okay, so this is a second rezoning hearing for tonight. It's RZP 23-04 for 8702 Overlook Drive. It's the first reading and first public hearing tonight. Okay, so this is a general area map. It shows the location on a GIS map, and then it also shows the location on a map there. The map to the left shows the area bolded in blue, and that's at the intersection of Overlook Drive and Grove Hill Road. The current future land use map category is DMU 35. The current zoning is R10, single-family residential. It's again in our downtown community redevelopment area and in the overlay zoning district. The proposed zoning is to PD, and the parcel's a little smaller than the last one. It's 0.404 acres. I keep hitting the wrong. Okay. So again, According to the city's land development code, the rezonings in our downtown will be done as for PDs. The applicant proposes in this instance to develop 8 townhomes on the site, 4 buildings with 2 units per building. The subject property is surrounded by single-family uses to the north, south, and east, and multifamily units to the west. Okay, here is the conceptual site plan that's required. It's, again, 4 two-story units sharing a common wall located on 2 or more parcels. Excuse me, on 2 parcels. The site's going to be accessed from Overlook Drive, and a detailed site plan and a subdivision plat will be submitted later for the council to consider. Again, there's a bunch of waivers requested. The one highlighted in yellow is where things, or excuse me, red, is where a lot of this goes for. When you pick the RMF zoning district, which is the townhome zoning district, and you try and utilize it in our CRA in the downtown area, you're going to have waivers. And the first one goes from the 10-acre lot requirement. And so these are waivers which we have potentially will need to have them hopefully approved. And then when, as Mr. Thomas said, the site plan, when we get down to that point, we'll have it covered in case they are needed. The front yard setback's going to be reduced from 25 to 8 feet. The rear yard setbacks reduced from 20 to 8 feet. The maximum building coverage is increased from 30% to 49.6. The required vehicular parking 17.6 to 16 spaces. Minimum gross lot's going to be reduced to 126 feet. Minimum lot area is reduced from 1,800 to 1,697. Minimum number of contiguous townhouses will be reduced from 4 to 2. The contiguous townhomes and related accessory structures to contiguous townhomes and related accessory structures setback to be reduced from 20 feet to 14 feet. I can't read those, I'm sorry. The contiguous townhouse and related accessory structures, the property line adjoining the yard, side yard of an adjacent lot not included within the townhouse development setback to be reduced from 30 to 14 feet. And that will be, I believe, the setback to the northern property. The minimum separation between structures, the entry yard will be reduced from 15 to 14 feet. The common open area on the property is 0. And we're okay with that because there's a city park directly across the street from here. The fencing is PVC and won't be any higher than 6 feet. We're asking for waivers from the wall plane visual variations and the number of multifamily residential landscaping setbacks reduced from 5 feet to 0 feet. I keep hitting that one. Again, there's architectural standards that need to be met in our CRA, and these are the front elevations, the rear elevation, the left side, and the right side elevations. They all meet the requirements of the architectural standards in our downtown. Here's our analysis of that. Again, it meets the massing, the building facade materials, the forms of the roof, and the details of materials. The window treatments are correct, and the building entrances and features on the site follow those design standards. On December 19th, the Planning Commission recommended approval, and staff's recommended approval on first reading of the ordinance with exhibits A through D, adopting the rezoning classification. I can answer any questions that the council may have tonight. The applicant's representatives are in the audience as well. Excuse me, as well.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. I'm sure there will be several questions, but are there members of the public who wish to comment on this first? I'm looking. Okay, very good. Council member questions? Yes, Council member Chambers.
Mr. Sherman, can you put the slide back up showing the site, proposed site plan?
But does the applicant wish to speak before
is that
questions?
first?
Or? Okay.
Okay.
Yes, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you, rather, Mayor, Council. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Chandra Frederick. I'm a land use planner representing Charlie Thomas on this project. And I would like to get the, there we go. Again, my name is Chandra Frederick, and I'm representing this project where we are requesting to go from R10 to a planned development. As Mr. Sherman has mentioned, we are proposing to do a similar project as across the street that you all are aware of. Thank you. What happened? Maybe I can just use the mouse. I don't think I need to use that.
The mouse is in.
Hold on, it's tweaking out.
Little wanky there. Okay, thank you. There it is. Okay. Thank you so much. So we are appreciative of the Hillsborough County City Planning Commission supporting the project, as well as the staff here with Temple Terrace. Again, we are trying to introduce a diverse housing type project that is supportive of the policies that are in your land use comprehensive plan. We are looking to create a product that is transitional and very much appropriate for the area. There's multifamily in the area, there is single family in the area, and this introduces the townhome product, which is the single family attached product. We talked about, Mr. Sherman talked about the location, so I won't spend much time there. We are located on the northwest corner of overlooking Grove Hill, across the street from the other project, which is on the northeast corner. And as you can see from this diagram, there are single-family homes, and we actually have a good relationship with the neighbor to the north. We've talked with him about tree plantings to enhance the tree plantings on his property to enhance the screening, so that the transition from the townhome to the single-family is even more seamless for him. Again, it was mentioned that there's multifamily in the area. Across the street is the park. This is a lovely community. We believe that this will be an enhancement, something that will bring a diversity in housing type, particularly workforce housing, where we can perhaps provide something for your professionals in Temple Terrace, your teachers, your firefighters, your police officers. Workforce housing is something that we all have been talking about. We know the need in the community, in the county, and in the state for affordable and workforce housing. So again, today we are talking about the site on the northwest corner. And the site plan has been discussed, but I did want to just reiterate that these are treated as single-family lots. They will have access on a private 24-foot wide drive that will go to Overlook. And I think in a previous presentation, I heard a question asked about how these will be served in terms of waste management and things. They will have their own cans. They will be responsible for taking their cans to the place where they can be picked up, so that the trucks are not trying to navigate on a private drive that would be hard for them to back in and out of. So we are trying to make this. The other thing that I would like to mention is that we know that in your code it talks about 4 townhome units being attached, but in our scenario we have 2, and it does make it the mass much more similar to the single-family homes in the area, as opposed to something that is a lot larger without breaks in the facade. This is the layout. Again, the 4 buildings with the 2 attached units. They're 2 stories, as has been discussed. And these are the elevations. I'm very happy and proud of these elevations. The differences in the facade, the balcony features, the different amenities of the facade give it an approach that matches the desire of the downtown CRA. These are the left and rear and the right elevation. So at this time, I just want to share point out a couple of the policies that are in your land use plan that I think are relevant to discuss. First of all, I think this is the one. I can barely read that. I mentioned before that this project really promotes workforce housing to support Temple Terrace's professionals. So we definitely believe that we are addressing those concerns. The second policy that I wanted to highlight was Housing Policy 1.96, which is the bottom one. And it speaks to utilizing mechanisms to stimulate the market to develop sustainable housing through incentives such as setback reductions, height variances, and allows for smaller lot size and flexible lot configuration. We are trying to provide a unique and needed product on a lot that may be a little bit smaller than what you might have envisioned, but it's what's there. And we are trying to do our best to provide something on what we have that you can be proud of in your community. And with that, I stand for any questions that you may have.
Just want to share a couple things.
Yes.
Thank you.
Again, Charlie Thomas. Hello, Mayor.
Hello.
Didn't plan on speaking earlier. So I just want to go back and walk us back. This project's been, we applied for this actual rezoning 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. So when we came with 8701 Overlook, when we had our Key West project, well, let's skip that. Before the Key West project, there was the apartment, right? And so the downtown overlay district calls for multifamily. And so when we came to the board, we heard you that multifamily was not the style or direction that you were going, what you wanted for the downtown revitalization. So we went back to come with single-family attached, which accomplishes two goals. It gets the intent of what the council's looking for, which is single-family ownership along with increased density. And so that's how we got to the project to where we are, that we've massaged from Key West to where we go to the Mediterranean. And then so I give you a couple points so that we level set, because so we're talking technicalities. So when they discuss that we meet the design criteria for the downtown overlay district, makes sense. Except when they discuss the zoning and setbacks and usage, they're using the RM multifamily, which is not the downtown overlay district. But that's the mechanism that you have to go to get to step two. But if we just take it and apply the downtown overlay district, there is no reduction of waiver from 28 to 8. It is a reduction from zero at the sidewalk to 8 feet. It's 0 on the side to the 6 feet. So what we're doing is taking what you guys have said, intent that you want, and give it the style and feel of single-family attached ownership than multifamily for the CRA. And so I just want to make sure, I've met with staff, and they have been excellent to work with, and we've kind of worked through the language because, and I think it's important that these are potential waivers. So they're not, we don't need these waivers to go to the next phase. When we come before you on the site plan, which is, this is a site plan project, you'll see this twice. We'll come back before you with a site plan asking for your approval. The site plan will go against, again, the CRA, and those waivers won't exist. They'll be, why aren't you going for a 0 lot line? Why don't you have a side yard setback? And your design meets the design criteria. So I think it's important that we understand what we're talking about. And so those waivers, the green space, all of those waivers would be potential if we were in that district, but we're not. We're in the CRA. And if you put up the CRA requirements, we meet all of those and exceed those. And so I just want to thank you for that. I want to tell you that we've heard you, that we've worked at it, and that we've come back. You weren't here for the last hearing for 8727. And so I want to speak on that just for a little bit. That property never went for sale in the market. The homeowners reached out to us to say, hey, we like what you're doing at 8701 and want to know if you want to buy this and do that similar development down there, which is how we got to 8727 before we came to this one, because we purchased both of these properties, again, 2.5 years ago, and we've been working with council and staff to get to this process. So we want to make sure that we have been with our neighbors. We are working with the fire department. They were looking to see if they could use the facility at 8727 for training, which it's not working out, but we're donating the lockbox back to there. We are a proud member of the community and giving back to the community. And so we've taken time and effort. Our neighbor, 8706, is supportive of the project. He's the direct beneficiary and then directly associated to us. And if you guys have taken the time or set to the neighborhood, as they talked earlier, you know, those 20,000, 40,000 people, they're really coming. They have to go somewhere. And so we have to increase the density on these lots. This is the area that you guys have identified that you want the density to go, and we're trying to produce a product that meets that need. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, council members' questions. Let me start at this end for this time. Councilmember A, Vice Mayor, nothing?
I do.
Councilmember Schistler.
I do. Mostly clarification, make sure I'm understanding this correctly, and this might be one whole case late, but the waivers that are listed are not waivers for the CRA overlay district. They're waivers from the old,
It's our townhouse zoning
the
district.
townhouse zoning. Okay, so the townhouse zoning, irrespective of, you know, if they did anything, they'd have to go to PD, correct? Okay, and the townhood waivers would disappear. The
So
townhood
they're going to
requirements.
PD now.
Pardon me?
They're going to PD now. It's a very
No,
strange thing in our code. We have to pick the closest district. What we really need is a townhouse zoning design standards for our CRA. And then all these waivers are going to go away. We won't need them.
But I mean, it's just, the fact that they're all listed, it's just because we're going to PD. And we have to go to PD because it's in the CRA district, correct?
Yes.
So irrespective of where this would be occurring, the same waivers would have to happen even if it was
Potentially.
done on the other side of the street.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. I'm good, thank you.
Councilmember Chambers?
I originally was going to ask a question about the driveway, but it was answered by a slide the applicant had in his presentation, her presentation, excuse me, so I'm good.
Councilmember Fernandez?
I'm just further clarification regarding the zoning and this process. So what I don't really understand, so clarify, why do we need to have the townhouse zoning analysis if we are in the CRA? Shouldn't the CRA take priority that zoning and that guideline?
So and this is paraphrasing, council member, but the code says when you do a PD, you have to pick a zoning district that most matches use, things like that, that you want to build. The only district we have that allows townhouses is the RMF zoning district. So that was just the leaping off point. And that's why all the waivers you see are based on a 10-acre piece of land.
Because the actual design criteria in the CRA does have 0 lot lines and larger mass buildings, which that is located in the CRA, and it also has multifamily. So because this would be a project where it's technically single-family owned shared wall, that doesn't count as multifamily, correct?
That's correct. These are single-family attached units
Okay.
as opposed to detached units.
So I think that's what's causing a lot of confusion, is that for a project that ultimately fits at least the design criteria as it's been established in our documents, that actually fits the design criteria for where it's going to be built.
Right.
Okay.
Kind of convoluted, isn't it?
Yeah, I hope that answers some questions.
Okay. I have a couple. Mr. Sherman, can you put the proposed waivers back up, even though I understand that this is a comparison to a zoning district other than what I get that. But I still have some questions about it regardless of that.
Certainly.
I need the page where it's the proposed waivers. There were some, I'm not necessarily opposed to them, I'm just not sure I fully understand them.
Okay. I'm going to try and get a page I can read. So.
Okay, there. Okay, that'll work, I suppose. Contiguous townhouse and related accessory structures, I got that one. Contiguous related. Okay, well, maybe I don't have that. So the first couple, I'm just confused. I mean, I understand what the words mean. I'm just not sure I understand what that sentence means. The contiguous townhouse and related accessory structure. I don't know what that is. The related accessory structure to contiguous townhouse and related accessory structure setback. I don't know, I'm just missing
Okay, so
something.
let
I gotta
me
make sure I
see
understand
if
that. I
I can
don't,
show you this.
and I understand that we're talking about PD versus RM. I get that, but I still don't know exactly what that means.
Okay, I can probably show you
Okay.
the site plan there.
I don't see any
Thought I
room
had
for an
that page
accessory
open.
structure.
So, I wish I had a laser pointer here,
Mayor, if
but
I could share, that's part of the code.
That's
The
it is.
language says that.
Yes.
There is, but there isn't as a part of this project. So some of the code language speaks to the structure or any accessory structure. So when we were working through, we're saying we need a waiver for something that doesn't apply, but because of the choice that it's picked from, we still have to address.
Okay, so there'll be no accessory
No, sir,
structure.
there is no accessory.
there's no accessory structures, but it also applies between townhomes. So, they've got the 14 feet, I believe, which is fine.
But there won't be accessory structures
There's
in
not
that.
gonna be any accessories, they're lumped together in that standard.
Okay, so go back, I'm sorry to keep asking you to toggle, but that was helpful, thank you. If you could go back to the waiver page again.
Yes, sir.
Want me to do it?
Sure. I mean, I've got it here so I can read it.
Okay. Let me read this one. The contiguous, I read this 12 times at home, and I don't know. The contiguous townhouse and related accessory structure to property line adjoining the side yard of an adjacent lot but not included. What is that? I've read that 12 times. I
So
keep.
I think that what that says is that you've got to be 30 feet away from the house on the adjacent property, and they're 14. And that's why the applicant has voluntarily said, we're going to beef up your landscaping to make it seamless, as Ms. Frederick said.
Okay, so is that a moot waiver also because there's not going to be accessory structures?
This will be, it's accessory structures, but also from the townhouse to the adjacent lot structure. Needs to be 30 feet, and they're going to have 14 feet.
Okay.
Again, because on a 10-acre site, you could meet those standards.
But again, given the reduced setback in the rear yard and the side yard, there's no room for an accessory structure anyway.
Correct. So it's talking about accessory, but also the main townhouse structures in that.
Okay. Minimum separation between the structures, I get that. Common open area, park across the street, I get that. Required yard locations and screening, got that. Fencing compatibility, I get that. Required fence wall plane visual variations, what is that?
So it requires that you have some variation in the walls and the architectural standards in our CRA. This will be just a plain PVC 6'5" fence.
Okay, so that's not a waiver that applies to like the wall of the
No, sir.
structure?
That's
Okay.
for the fencing.
Multifamily residential landscaping setback.
The landscaping will be on the lot line.
So I promise I'm gonna wind this down, but can you go to the elevations page and go to the rear elevation?
I can, yes, sir.
That's the back, okay. The northernmost two buildings, this will be the back facing the next door neighbor.
That's right, yes, sir.
How close is that, I don't know how his house is positioned on his lot. Are these folks gonna be looking right down into his living room window?
The answer to that would be no. His house, the front of his house faces east, and so they would be positioned over the viewing to the side. And we've gone through, we've just planted 3 maple trees in his backyard, his side yard. He has a man cave in the back. So he asked for some trees, and so we planted some trees in his man cave. to give shade. There's a pear tree that's going to come down that's providing shade over his garage, and then we're going to put additional screening above that to give him shade over there. But no, it won't look down into his bedroom window.
So this would look at the side of his house?
Correct. Yes, sir.
And even if it was a single-family home, they could build a two-story structure. They're not gonna be any higher than is permitted right now.
Good point.
Yep, the structure wouldn't be any higher. And then, again, I don't want to belabor the points that these waivers are not
I
actually
understand.
requested. They're potential waivers,
I got it.
which will not apply in the CRA.
I got it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you both. Other questions, council members? Or are you just tired of listening to me ask questions? Okay. Okay, I will close the public hearing in that case and ask the clerk to read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, rezoning .404 acres of real property within the downtown community redevelopment area located approximately 1,140 feet south of the intersection of Overlook Drive and Bush Boulevard with an address of 8702 Overlook Drive, folio number 201-600-0000 from zoning classification, single-family residential, R10 to Plan Development, PD, providing for amendment to the official zoning map of the city, providing severability and effective date, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith.
Good, thank you, council. Is there a motion?
Move to approve on move to approve on first public hearing and first reading of ordinance adopting rezoning of folio numbers 201-600-000 with an address of 8702 Overlook Drive. Second reading will be on the 18th.
I'll read that if it
Oh, okay,
passes.
okay, all right. That's my motion.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted on first reading and will appear for a second reading and public hearing on Tuesday, June 18th, 2024. Thank you both. All right, council business. We have one item scheduled here. It's for scheduling a closed executive session. Council members, I know you're aware, but for the public's benefit, we are in need of scheduling a closed executive session to discuss the fire labor negotiations and the progress thereof. We'd like to hold this meeting on June 18th at 5 p.m., but we need to have a motion that is approved by council in order to do that. So is there a motion to that effect?
Yes. Move to approve scheduling of a closed executive session on June 18th at 5 p.m. Do I need to say the location?
That would be helpful.
In the city manager's conference room.
Very good. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No nays. We will have a shade meeting on June 18th. New business, any other council business, carryover council business? Councilmember Fernandez?
Let's not carry over, it's new.
That's, well, okay, go ahead.
Okay.
That's coming next anyway, so go ahead.
I wasn't sure, I was told today that the principal at Greco Middle School is moving, and there will be a new principal appointed. They may have been appointed today, but I wasn't sure if you all were aware that that change had been made. And I wanted to request, in the city of Plant City, they are very involved and engaged, and I have a relationship with the school district that the school district involves the community in their administrative selections. And I just wanted to ask, I mean, this principal has already been appointed. I don't know anything about them, but I'd like to see if we can somehow become more engaged in these processes, because people, when they're looking for a place to live, one of their number one concerns is, where will my children go to school, or where's this house, where the residents zoned for, even if they don't have children, for resale. So I think it is very important to the community for us to have to be highly engaged. And I know we have our school support task force, but I don't know if there's a way to have more engagement with the school district in order to be part of these decisions.
Well, I don't know either. I can certainly talk to Mayor Kilton and the school superintendent. I'm not aware of what they do or how they do it. Unless I guess this is some kind of like interview panel or something. I don't know how that.
And we have engaged in this in the past. The district has invited community members and school support task force members or people active at a particular school when they're looking at replacing the administration, but they haven't for a while. So I don't know how we can become re-engaged in that process. We only have 3 traditional schools, and River Hills is a magnet, so it's not a traditional school, but Lewis, Temple Terrace Elementary, and Greco Middle School are physically within our city boundaries, so they make, it's important to us.
Well, I can certainly talk to Mayor Kilton and the superintendent and see what they're doing out there and report back to council. Let everybody know what they're doing and,
Thank you.
okay? Well, we're still in council business, but.
No.
Well, okay.
Thought we-
Councilmember Chambers, new business.
I have a couple of things, but one is about kind of what we just went over. Not only is there a new principal, but there's apparently a new head custodian that probably didn't know the agreement the city has for about community gardens and other things, and locked a gardener in the parking lot the other day. So with the new people coming in, I know we have an agreement with the school to use the citizens to use the track and community garden. The community gardening president got that straightened out, but we need somebody from staff to maybe reach out to the school so they know about our agreements we have. So
I did not know there was a new principal there.
I didn't either until like 5 minutes ago, but I knew about the new head custodian.
Found out the hard way.
Yes, it wasn't Beth who has a plot there, but it was another one. So, but anyway, that's one item. Another item I wanted to report on the art projects we have going on. For this building, City Hall, the hallway gallery was what we're calling it. The railing system to hang all the artwork has been ordered. I don't know when we expect it in, but it's been ordered. The documents to go out to the artists and all the legalities of it has been sent to the city manager's office, and I'm sure he's having staff review it. So we don't want to ask for the art yet until the railing gets up because we don't have any way to store it and protect it. So we're just waiting on that. So that's underway. What I wanted to ask council about is there is money left over this year, and one of the projects you mentioned was street art, maybe at White Way and Gillette or other streets, and I wanted to know if we could start thinking about, we have enough money to do something like that, either there or in front of the rec center or anywhere. So I need some guidance on what intersections we might want to consider.
Well, I'm all in favor of it. Council?
Absolutely.
That doesn't help me pick the location, so.
I mean, would you want something a little more public, like White Way and 56th Street? Or are you?
I don't know
looking
if we
for
can do it. We
interior?
can't do anything on 56th Street.
But we
That's,
could on White Way, though, as it comes in from 56th Street.
I suppose we could, yes.
Like White Way on this side of 56th Street, and then White Way on the other side of 56th Street. I don't know.
I don't know if we have enough money for 2 murals or 2 artwork, but something like that, if that's what you want me to work on. So I really need a kind of location, and I don't really need it tonight, but however you want to do it, if y'all are ready to pick a location tonight.
So why don't we put this on a agenda in the future, give the public an opportunity to comment on this, give each of us an opportunity to kind of mull it over, talk to people in the community. You talk to Arts Council members, see if they have recommendations, and we'll have it as an agenda item, and we'll take public comment.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, Councilmember Abel.
Specifically, are we talking about where to put a mural?
Well, there's enough money to do a mural after the artwork here. We can do something else, but I don't know what else. I know that originally the idea was the gallery system here at City Hall. There's railings already at Lightfoot, and we can certainly put excess art there. There used to be art there. So the other idea at the time, at least when the mayor thought of these projects, was to do some street art. And his suggestion was Gillette and Whiteway, since a lot of people travel that road. But again, we can do something different, but there's not enough money to do something like a sculpture somewhere or something. One of the other things that I know that the Arts Council's been trying to do, the first public art project that the city ever did, or the Arts Council ever did, was the painted origami metalwork outside of the family complex, which you see when you drive in. That's in desperate need of renovation. And I think Leisure Services has been getting prices on that. It's probably above the Arts Council's means to pay for the renovation. That could be worked on, but I don't know the cost of that. You know, so we have public art now, our first project ever done in the city that needs renovation. So
I personally would rather use that money for the pavement bureau, and then we'll deal with the renovation question when it comes up. But that's just my opinion.
But whatever we do on the streets, we have to get the buy-in of the neighbors surrounding it, because we've had at times, some opposition to something like our drain, where the drains have been painted. There's been some opposition, so we have to do something. So putting it on the agenda and probably noticing, well, we don't know where it's going yet, but once we do, we need to let the neighbors know.
Okay. Does that sound like a plan? We'll have a discussion at a future meeting?
What's your time frame? Next meeting, first suggestions, or what we hoping for?
I don't, we're not going to do anything in the summer. It's just too hot to paint. But we'll do it before the budget year ends.
Say we could let the city manager determine which meeting, you know, because, I mean, if we have a 3-hour meeting at the next meeting, we don't want to talk about this then. So let Mr. Bahia figure out where it fits the best, but in the near future, not September. I mean,
yeah.
Sound good?
Sounds great. I have one more.
Yes.
New business. In our presentation on rezoning, Mr. Sherman talked about our townhouse rules set way back when at 10 acres. Are we working on, is the city working on new townhouse rules by chance?
Boy, did you just open a can.
We have a list about as long as my arm of areas we've identified. So yes, sir, that's on the list to do.
Okay, just curious.
Yes, sir.
That's all. If it's big font, you can get only a couple things on
I'm
it.
short, so 5'6" arm.
I enjoyed the senior moment more than anything.
Now I'm done. Now I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, other new business. Board reports? Any board reports? Okay, city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Just one item. Wanted to let the public know that the city, after years, perhaps decades of trying to identify property for a police station, is now the proud owner of property for a new police station. So we closed yesterday on property at 7911 Harney Road. We've had a flurry of activity today going out to the site from many different departments, just trying to get an understanding of what's going to be required to secure that site for the next several weeks and obviously years going forward. So the public may start to see some activity there. Both the police and fire departments have asked to use the existing home, which is planned to be demolished, as a testing site or an exercise site for a short period of time, over probably a few days or a week or so. So we're trying to coordinate that. We're going to get the word out using our communications department to make sure that the public and the neighbors are aware that that might be happening. And then eventually we'll raise the structure. Public Works, Jason's crew is already lined up. They were out there today just getting a feel for in terms of the landscaping and mowing in and keeping it neat. So things are moving forward. What I intend to do is in the budget that I'll be presenting to you at the end of this month, include some dollars for initial design of the police station so that we can get this project moving to fruition. Happy to take any questions.
Good questions.
Yeah, good.
Well, thank you for your support.
I have to tell you, I have to give a presentation to a group on Friday morning. And I was making some notes about, you know, they want to hear what's going on in Temple Terrace, and I have 25 minutes. There's just no way to cover everything we have going on in 25 minutes. And I'm looking at this, and we've paid down our debt from $30 million to just over $10 million, and the remaining debt's at 2% fixed, so we're good. We are building an EOC that's paid for,
No, that's yours.
right? We have the money, we're paying for that in a combination of state grant funds and money that we have. We're building a utilities building with federal money that's paid for. We just paid cash for the new police station property where that's going, no debt, right? Future fire station will be going there also. We have not raised taxes, property taxes, since, at least since 2016, since I've been around. In fact, we've had 2 reductions. They're small, but they're still 2 reductions. We haven't raised property taxes in at least 8 years. We have instituted a public art program. We've instituted a historical preservation ordinance. We've instituted a bicycle pedestrian advisory committee. And the list goes on and on and on. We've accomplished more in the past few years than we've accomplished in the previous 20 or 30. So unfortunately, the chief and I, neither one will be around when this police station is finished. But if you can find me, I will come back for the ribbon cutting, I promise. So I'm very proud of the work that's going on here, and so good job on your part, good job on your part. So thank you to everybody. So, City Attorney.
I just want to breathe a sigh of relief. It was a long day yesterday working on this closing, and I kept promising the city manager, we will do it by 5 o'clock, but we were crossing our fingers and biting our nails, but we made it. So there were a lot of last-minute corrections that were discovered, and title company misstating the legal description, but it was like herding cats, but it got done.
Well, thank you for your work on that too. I know that you did a lot, so thank you. Anything else, council members? Any other business to come before the council? Staff, anything? Okay, if not, we'll stand adjourned.
Well, it's good to know this plug works.